and welcome to another episode of Other Items of Interest. I'm your host, Jack Zablocki. On today's show, we ask, how much would you spend to fight a $100 ticket? Also, we see how a clown can be useful, and we'll find out what the Russian Orthodox Priest is blessing now. All that and more on today's Other Items of Interest. Hello, and welcome to another episode of Other Items of Interest. I'm your host, Jack Zablocki. Today we've got a pretty good show for you. I wanted to start out with an update to a story from last week's show. We covered a story about oldest woman to give birth. She was an Indian woman. The article I read last week said she was 74, her husband was 80. This update says she's 73 and he's 78. The update is not a happy one. Didn't want to cover it on the show itself. I figured I'd do it up in the intro here. They're both in ICU. Surprise, surprise. The mother went into ICU, I think, pretty much immediately after giving birth. The father, Raja, he gave a quote, the day of the birth, due to the grace of God and doctors, I am the proud father of 2 baby girls. We are the happiest couple on earth today. And the next day he collapsed from a heart attack. So they're both in ICU. And it also turns out they lied to the doctor about their ages so they could do in vitro fertilization. So maybe this whole deal wasn't the greatest idea. I'm getting this information from the New York Post, by the way. Give her a little credit to where credit is due. So that's that update. They do have a very large extended family to take the twins if something else goes wrong. Yeah, there's the update on that. I didn't feel like doing the whole story. It's a bummer. There's a picture of the twins, though. I'll put it in the show notes. Cute babies. Sometimes you see an ugly baby, you don't want to say anything, but these are cute babies. There's another story in the news over the weekend. I didn't want to cover it, but I did want to talk about here. Real quick, this woman was sleepwalking. And during her sleepwalk session, she took off her engagement ring, popped it in her mouth, and drank it down with a glass of water. Isn't that something? I don't know if she's passed it yet or what, but I woke up from a weird dream this morning. It's still on my mind. I record the show in the morning, so it hasn't been too long since I woke up from this. I know it sucks to listen to other people's dreams, just because it does. But I'm going to talk about it anyway, because I'm selfish that way. I'm sorry to say. I was in a casino, and I don't usually like casinos. And for some reason, this casino had an arts and crafts fair. They had a contest for best arts and crafts, and it was just all old ladies. The whole convention area was filled with old ladies with their arts and crafts. And the MC called out for Mrs. Brierson to come accept her award for some kind of popsicle stick craft. And she never showed up. She didn't come to accept her award. Oddly enough, Joe Walsh, guitarist for the Eagles, was in the audience. And if you know anything about Joe Walsh, he's an incoherent mess from drugs. He might have gotten better, but last time I heard him, he was an incoherent mess. And he stood up and he said, well, I guess that's me. And he walked to the stage and gave an incoherent acceptance speech for Mrs. Brierson's award. I left the convention center at that point, and I was tasked to help head of security solve a crime in the casino. And the head of security was a little person. I don't know if maybe David Lynch is directing my dreams. I don't know. But every time he went to go through a doorway, he would walk into the corner of the room for some reason, and I'd have to pull him back and direct him towards the doorway again. We never solved the crime. I'm not sure what the crime was, but I woke up stupefied. It was pretty much at that point I woke up, and I'm just dumbfounded about what I was dreaming. Anyway, I think we should get on with the show. Trigger warning. First story we cover is about a clown. It's not a scary story, but it's a clown nonetheless, and I don't believe there's anybody out there who likes clowns other than other clowns. And even then, I think clowns have infighting amongst themselves. I think with that, we'll get on with the show, shall we? I think we shall. Okay, so I lied. Clown story is one of the first stories, not the first story. We'll take it easy on you. It's coming up, just be forewarned. Clowns in the mists. French company, liable after employee dies during sex on business trip, from BBC.com. A French company has been found liable for the death of an employee who had a cardiac arrest while having sex with a stranger on a business trip. A Paris court ruled that his death was an industrial accident and that the family was entitled to compensation. The firm had argued the man was not carrying out professional duties when he joined a guest in her hotel room. But under French law, an employer is responsible for any accident occurring during a business trip, judges said. The man, named as Xavier X, well, that's a pretty cool name. I guess it's not his real name. Trying to keep his identity private. Xavier X was working as an engineer for TSO, a railway services company based near Paris. He died at a hotel during a trip to central France in 2013 as a result of what the employer called an extramarital relationship with a perfect stranger. I guess if a stranger is going to have sex with you, that is a perfect stranger. The company challenged a decision by the state health insurance provider to regard the death as a workplace accident. The provider defended its position by insisting that sexual activity was normal, like taking a shower or a meal. Well, I don't know how you're taking a shower or having a meal, but okay. In its ruling, the Paris Appeals Court upheld this view. An employee on a business trip is entitled to social protection over the whole time of his mission and regardless of the circumstances, it said. So it's interesting, to say the least. Interesting way to go. And interesting aftermath of your life. That's the legacy you've left behind. And here's the clown story. Worker at New Zealand company brings clown to firing meeting, from UPI.com. A New Zealand man who was told he could bring someone along for support to a meeting where he expected to be fired spent more than $100 hiring a professional clown. Joshua Jack said he received an email from bosses at Auckland Ad Agency, FCB, telling him a meeting was being held to discuss his future at the company, and he could bring a friend or family member as a support person, a common practice at redundancy meetings in New Zealand. I wish we called them redundancies here in the States. It's nicer, but at the same time, you're being called redundant. So I don't know how special that is to make you feel. Sensing the bad news, I decided I needed the best support person available, so I spent $200 or $127 US to hire a clown, Jack wrote on Facebook. Jack shared photos from the meeting, which featured the clown in full makeup, making balloon animals, while Jack's superiors at the company broke the news that he was being let go. It was rather noisy, him making balloon animals, so we had to tell him to be quiet from time to time, Jack told radio show Magic Talk. He said his bosses saw the humor in the situation. Again, he was $200, so basically he was, I assume, one of the best clowns in Auckland. They were getting a free service. They were also getting the entertainment from Joe the Clown, he said. Jack said the story has a happy ending. He already has a new job with competing agency DDB. What is it about clowns people don't like? Is it just the painted face? It's everything. It's the painted face. It's the goofy shoes. It's the ugly clothes. The wacky hair. It's just not natural. Imagine clowns were a race of people. Like we had to share the planet with, a whole other group of people like clowns. Clown movements, and I identify as a clown. That's a movie waiting to happen. But wait, there's more. Joe the Clown gives his side of the redundancy meeting support role that's reached world headlines from nzherald.co.nz, New Zealand Herald. And right up top is a picture of Joe the Clown and Josh Thompson, the man who is made redundant. Joe the Clown does not have any face makeup on, so it just looks like a man in a silly wig and a hat. The clown, hired as a support person for a Kiwi ad man's redundancy meeting, says the job was good value compared to kids' parties, and he was careful not to be offensive while making balloon animals for the bosses. The Herald on Sunday can reveal the clown at the center of the meeting, which has made headlines around the world, was Auckland actor and freelance videographer Joseph Brosnahan. The 26-year-old works as a clown for hire through various children's parties businesses. On the weekend, Brosnahan said he was approached by one employer, Amazing Kids Parties, for a very unusual request last month. They said, "Feel free to say no to this because it's pretty out there, but there's this guy who apparently got word that he's going to be fired, and he's allowed to bring a support person with him," Brosnahan said. And as a joke, he'd like to bring in a clown. Would you be up for doing that? And I just thought that sounded so hilarious I couldn't resist. It is a good goof. We don't do that here in the States, where we're allowed to bring a friend or family member into our firing. They just bring us into the office at the end of the day Friday, tell us to pack up and leave. That's about it. They're so much nicer over there. Brosnahan, a.k.a. Joe the Clown, said the ad man Josh Thompson met him outside advertising agency FCB New Zealand in Freeman's Bay in central Auckland on August 20th. He arrived in his car with his clown costume in a bag. That's interesting. I'm so stupid. I probably would have gotten dressed up at the house in my clown costume and, drove there in my clown costume. Maybe stop somewhere to get a cup of coffee in my clown costume. I would have never thought about bringing it with me and changing there, because I'm an idiot. He arrived in his car with his clown costume in a bag. Thompson led him into the building, where he changed into the costume in a bathroom before entering the meeting. There was no pre-planning before the meeting, and Brosnahan said, despite his presence, the employers kept a straight face. They weren't playing around with it, and meanwhile I was just sitting there in a clown costume, Brosnahan said. Well, that's one way to be fired. I doubt this has ever happened before. This one comes from grapevine.is, the Reykjavik grapevine from Iceland. Headline reads, Woman takes part in search for herself. It's a very existential headline, very zen. Taking part in search for herself. Oh, there I am, man. Found it. A tourist who was declared missing and the subject of an intense police search had no idea she was missing, and in fact took part in the search itself. The story began on Saturday. Morgenbladet reports when a woman who is described as Asian, about 160 centimeters, in dark clothing and speaks English well, was declared missing somewhere in the vicinity of Elgia in South Iceland. The search went on throughout the weekend with no sign of the woman found. However, yesterday morning she was reported found and had no idea she was missing in the first place. This was apparently the result of a misunderstanding regarding her appearance. While it was initially reported that she had stepped off the bus at Elgia and never returned, in fact, she changed clothing before getting back on the bus. To make matters more surreal, she had even taken part in the search without realizing at first that she was the one people were looking for. Eventually, it occurred to her that she could very well be the one missing person described, and reported the matter to police. The search was called off shortly thereafter. I wonder if that's a little embarrassing. I'd feel like a complete schmuck if I was part of a search party looking for somebody who was lost, and the description of the person was me, and it was just right over my head. Complete schmuck. I'm not saying she is. I'll just give her the benefit of the doubt. That's wacky. So, the original article I had for this story has disappeared from the website I was going to use. I've got a new source now, but haven't really, I've only read through it once, so it might not be so smooth. Might be stuttering and stammering through the whole thing. From Newsweek, and this is a cute story. We have very few of those on the show. Montana mom combats neighborhood speeding problem with blow dryer radar gun. A Montana woman is single-handedly combating her community's speeding problem with a blow dryer. Patty Baumgartner of Finley Point has taken to the streets around her home near Flathead Lake, brandishing the blower like a radar gun in an effort to make people drive more carefully. And then we have a picture of Patty in her chair. She has a solo cup of some kind of drink. Don't know what. Don't know if the article will mention it. And she has her hair dryer. She looks very serious. Serious work. They forget to slow down, and there are lots of people that are complaining about that. They can't walk or ride their bikes, Baumgartner told KRTV on Friday. I wouldn't even attempt riding a bike around. She said she was discussing with friends how to slow cars down, and we decided to put me in a chair and I guess use the hairdryer as a speed thing. Baumgartner's son, Timmy, enjoyed the idea so much he tweeted pictures of his mom performing her public service and tagged Montana Highway Patrol Trooper Noah Pasola. There we have the tweet. Montana is actually pretty nice looking. I've never been to Montana. Excuse me. I'm just very easily distracted. An impressed Pasola made Baumgartner an honorary trooper. The best thing I could think of was to give her a trooper hat and a badge to make her look a little more official, Pasola told KRTV, calling her technique hilarious. I think that we have a speed issue in Montana, and I thought it was a great creative idea for the public to try and combat that a little bit without making people too upset, he added. And there's another tweet from Trooper Pasola with Baumgartner. He did get her a hat. I haven't seen this picture before in the previous article. It's adorable. This is like a real feel-good story. I'm starting to feel good. That's an odd feeling for me. I don't know what to do. Since Baumgartner's story was shared, the honorary trooper has since received support from online commenters who also acknowledge Montana's speeding problem. I sure wish she'd come sit in my driveway, one Twitter user wrote. We're on a 35-mile-per-hour road with little hills and by a corner where drivers have the need for speed. Had a speed meter set up and majority of people fly by going 50 plus. I'll even provide whatever she needs for her solo cup. Solo cup was mentioned, but not what's in it. It's a mixed drink, probably. I don't know. Why do I have to ruin the story by claiming she's, getting intoxicated while doing this? It's wrong with me, and I know it. But I said it anyway. Now it's out there. Of course, the idea of a makeshift deterrent to keep drivers from speeding is not without precedent. In July, Edie Pope of Lydiate in Merseyside, England, created a scarecrow cop to patrol busy Southport Road. Pope, a parish councillor, got the speed limit in Lydiate reduced from 60 miles per hour to 40 miles per hour. But when people wouldn't heed the new limit, the scarecrow cop was born. There have been 3 accidents on this road just recently, she told the BBC. There was one driver who crashed into a lamppost, breaking it in half and missing a pedestrian by 6 inches. She had to jump into a hedge to save her life. And that's that. People doing good deeds. In the movie The Incredibles 2, there's a quote that stuck out to me. The government agent tells Mr. Incredible, if you want me to help you get out of that hole, you're going to have to put down that shovel first. And that reminds me of this story, very much so. From the BBC.com. Man spends £30,000 fighting 100-pound speeding fine. You see what I mean with the quote? At some point, you just have to stop doing what you're doing to make things right. 100-pound fine. Spends £30,000 fighting it. Let's get on to the article. A man spent £30,000 of his savings on a failed legal battle for justice over a 100-pound speeding fine. Richard Keedwell, 71, said a seriously flawed legal system meant fighting the fine had taken nearly 3 years and used up his son's inheritance money. He claims he was wrongly clocked doing 35 miles per hour in a 30-mile-per-hour zone on a day trip to Worcester in 2016. That's a hard town to say, Worcester, because it's spelled not like it sounds. And I'm used to hearing it with a Boston accent. Worcester. 2 different towns completely, though. The Crown Prosecution Service, CPS, said the case involved a multiplicity of issues which added to its length. Retired engineer Mr. Keedwell of Yate near Bristol claimed he was certainly not doing more than 30 miles per hour in New Road in November 2016. He said, I was very surprised when a couple of days later I got the NIP, Notice of Intended Prosecution. They call it NIP. I wonder if anybody giggles anytime that word comes up. I really could not believe that I had been speeding. It made a simple day out turn very sour, actually. Mr. Keedwell claimed he had no case to answer and recruited the help of a video and electronics expert who told the court the speed camera may have been triggered by a car in an adjacent lane or had been faulty. However, he said it took 4 trips to Worcester Magistrates Court before his appeal was heard. After losing the case, he lost a further Crown Court appeal in August. Mr. Keedwell said he expected the case would be fairly quick, but had spent the best part of £30,000, including about £21,000 on barrister's fees and £7,000 in court costs, as well as travel expenses. Mr. Keedwell said he felt guilty, his family would miss out, and said the case had proved very stressful. I'm sick and tired at the whole system, which is steamrolling ordinary people, he said. I regret the amount of money. I very simply wanted justice. A CPS spokesperson, thank you very much, said some issues raised by the defense led to the need for additional hearings and for expert evidence to be obtained, as the case involved both a lengthy trial at the magistrate's court and subsequent hearings at the Crown Court to progress an appeal against conviction. The overall length of the case took some time to conclude, they said. £30,000. Nobody could stop this guy from fighting. Couldn't just pay £100. He had £30,000 to spend. All he had to spend was £100. You know how this works. I don't know why I'm explaining it to you. It's just completely nutty. I feel bad for the guy. And at the same time, I don't. I don't know what to feel. I'm conflicted. If you're driving down the road and you see a bear on the side of the road, is your first instinct to pull over, get out of the car, and fight the bear? I didn't think so. From CochraneToday.ca, man who tried to fight grizzly bear in Banff National Park fined $4,000. Somebody did. Somebody pulled over. Somebody got shirtless. Somebody tried to fight a bear. Let's find out about this fellow. It's not every day a man tries to fight a grizzly bear. I think I kind of stated that in a way. But it appears that is what happened in Banff National Park in 2015 when Devin Mitsuing, 35, got out of his truck shirtless and began shouting at the young grizzly while in a boxing stance before charging at it, according to an eyewitness to the incident. Caught on camera by a couple of nearby photographers who were taking pictures of the lone grazing grizzly on Highway 93 and called Royal Canadian Mounted Police after the incident, Mitsuing was later located in Radium, British Columbia by RCMP and a park warden and charged under the National Parks Act for disturbing wildlife in a national park. I wonder if we'll start doing more stories about, the National Parks Act to kind of complement the Migratory Bird Act that we cover so occasionally. Just a wonderment of mine. I wonder. After two previous missed court dates, the case finally came to trial in the Canmore Provincial Courthouse Friday, September 13th morning, with Judge George Gashler finding the Saskatchewan man guilty and imposing a $4,000 fine. It is abundantly clear this is a disturbance of a grizzly bear, and I find Mr. Mitsuing guilty, Judge Gashler said. While Mitsuing was at the courthouse before the doors officially opened, he left to run errands and grab some food, resulting in his absence from the morning trial. This guy's a real winner. Two witnesses were called to the stand, one of the photographers who captured the incident and the park's warden who charged Mitsuing. British Columbia photographer Thomas Murray O'Neill said they had been taking pictures of the bear on the Icefields Parkway near Peyto Lake for approximately an hour on June 5, 2015, when the red truck with a Saskatchewan license plate pulled up. We were on the other side of the highway when a truck pulled up, and two gentlemen got out, started yelling at the bear and throwing rocks. Then he took off his shirt and got in a boxing stance, O'Neill explained. Why would you take your shirt off? I understand in a fight against another human, you might take your shirt off so it doesn't get pulled over your head and you're incapacitated. Well, what's the deal with, doing it with a bear? Why would you fight a fucking bear anyway? Pardon my French. This guy's a moron. The photographer watched Mitsuing shirtless yell and taunt the young grizzly for approximately 5 to 10 minutes before the man started running toward the bear, startling it to run back into the bush. O'Neill said he couldn't hear what Mitsui was shouting, but was confident in identifying the bear as a grizzly, as he has been taking pictures of wildlife, especially grizzlies, for the past 40 years. O'Neill said they were concerned as the man in the truck seemed inebriated, so he called the RCMP. Park Warden Paul Friesen testified he was working in Kootenai National Park when he was contacted by dispatch about a man harassing a grizzly bear in Banff National Park. When I queried the license plate, I realized Columbia Valley had queried the license plate too, Friesen said during the trial. After a quick chat with officials, the warden discovered the vehicle in question had been impounded after RCMP officers were called to Radium Hot Springs with reports of a disturbance. After finding Mitsui and his friends at the hot springs too intoxicated to drive, RCMP impounded the vehicle and dropped the group off at a local hotel. Friesen located Mitsui at the hotel the following morning and took an audio statement that was played in court, where Mitsui asked several times where he was and said he did not throw rocks but was merely trying to get a photo with the bear. And here's a good quote. "I was just trying to get a picture. Was just fucking around. I thought it was a brown bear," Mitsui can be heard saying in the audio statement. I don't know. Toward the end of the recording, Mitsui asked where he was, and when he told he was in British Columbia, he swore. The warden asked where he was going, and Mitsui replied, "I don't know. I was trying to go golfing." I don't golf myself, but maybe one of you listeners do, or know someone who does. On their way to go golfing, do you stop to fight bears? Is that a thing? Does Jack Nicklaus fight bears on the regular? I doubt it. Federal Crown Prosecutor Jeremy Newton said Mitsui was incredibly lucky he was not maimed or killed in the incident, and noted that grizzly bears are a protected species. Judge Gashler said it was obvious this was disturbance of a grizzly bear and agreed to the Crown's recommendation of a $4,000 fine, with the money going toward the Environmental Damages Fund. "What is the next step? He isn't here," Judge Gashler asked after the ruling. He wasn't even there for the ruling. He was just gone, eating. It was decided Mitsui would have until October 16th to pay the fine or face 33 days in jail. Mitsui did return to the courthouse an hour after the trial concluded and turned himself in to Canmore RCMP. I think the judge said it best: when an individual creates this kind of dangerous situation with a bear, when they charge at him, when they throw rocks at him while they cause him to run into the bush, you're going to create an aggressive animal that obviously has the ability to do a lot of harm to humans and the public in general, Newton said after the trial. Mr. Mitsui wasn't just putting himself in danger, he was putting every other person who comes across this bear in danger in the future. So a large fine is a strong message to other individuals who, for whatever reason, would think to engage in this kind of behavior. You would hope they wouldn't, but it should be even more obvious now. I hope so too. The following story is a very curious one, very interesting. It's interesting how the brain works. From independent.co.uk, teenager's memory resets every 2 hours after being kicked in the head, meaning she wakes up thinking every day is June 11th. A teenager wakes up every morning thinking it is June 11th, as her memory resets every 2 hours after she was kicked in the head. Riley Horner, 16, has no recollection of the day she suffered a traumatic head injury after she was hit by a student crowd surfing at a dance. She has woken every morning since, believing it is still June 11th, the day her life completely changed. The former athlete and student from Illinois now has to keep detailed notes and photos with her at all times and has a 2-hour timer set on her phone. It's like Memento. Make a movie about her life. Every time the timer goes off, Riley reads back over her notes to remind herself of everything she's just learned but forgotten, including where her locker is. I have a calendar on my door and I look and it's September and I'm like, whoa, she told WQAD Channel 8 News. People just don't understand. It's like a movie, she added. That movie is Memento, but she probably forgot that. Like I will have no recollection of this interview come supper time. She's going to start tattooing stuff on her body to remember. The teenager's mother, Sarah Horner, said doctors have told her there is nothing medically wrong, although she added, you can't see concussion through an MRI or a CT scan. She told WQAD, Channel 8, my brother passed away last week and she probably has no idea. I guess that being her uncle. We tell her every day, but she has no idea about it. Why would they tell her her uncle died every day? That seems like pure hell. Just let it go. Gee, she has to experience the grief every day like it's brand new. That's harsh. The doctors told us that she might be like this forever, and I am not okay with that, she said. I'm not making memories, and I'm just really scared, Riley said. Riley's family are hoping to get a diagnosis from someone who knows a little bit more by the time it has been 6 months since the accident happened. According to brain injury charity Headway, I don't know why that brain injury charity Headway, the term Headway just doesn't seem like the right name for the charity. I don't know why. The greatest visible progress is made in the first 6 months after a brain injury, and then any improvement becomes less obvious. However, the charity said the common belief that there is a limited window for recovery after a brain injury is now known not to be the case, and that people can improve for years afterwards. And that's that. So there is some hope for her, but it's been a few months now, and her brain resets every 2 hours. I can't imagine living that way. It's going to be so confusing. I mean, my memory is not that great in the first place, but it's not that bad. From the New York Daily News, nydailynews.com, Nairobi lawmaker wants to put an end to farting on airplanes. That's right. Put an end to farting on airplanes. I guess everything in Nairobi is hunky-dory. This is what they're dealing with. Or this one lawmaker, anyway. And right up top is a picture of an airplane cabin. Bunch of passengers. I guess we're supposed to assume one of them is farting. On September 11th, no less, a Kenyan lawmaker put forth a plan to end what she considers a big problem, mile-high flatulence. Range constituency representative Dr. Lillian Gogo. Her name is spelled G-O-G-O. I'm going to pronounce it Gogo. Might be Gago. I don't know. Dr. Lillian Gogo of Nairobi called for a resolution to people passing gas in airplane cabins during a parliamentary debate Wednesday regarding the National Assembly Committee on Transport, Public Works, and Housing, according to Nairobi News. There is one irritant that is often ignored, and this is the level of farting within the aircraft, Gogo said. There are passengers who it says literary. I think it means literally. There are passengers who literally irritate fellow passengers by passing bad smell and uncomfortable fart. If there is any one given irritant that makes people fight on board, it is the fart. It is terrible within the plane. When pressed by another member of parliament on how exactly Gogo would implement such reform, she said it starts with staff training. We need special training on aircraft crews so that they provide medicines like bicarbonate of soda to passengers after meals and drinks have been served, Gogo reportedly answered. We should also have paramedics who are trained in basic first aid included in the international and local flights. What's a paramedic going to do about farting? I've never called for an EMT because I'm farting up a storm. Gogo told fellow legislators that if she's the only one among them who's encountered this problem, they should consider themselves very lucky. The longer the flight, she argued, the worse the problem. This is ridiculous. We cannot be secure on board when the other passengers are experiencing discomfort, she said. Farting and flatulence is done progressively and can be contained. Gogo also suggested limiting alcohol consumption on flights could amount to less cheese cutting as well. Less cheese cutting. Some top-notch journalism. The following story is about a Russian Orthodox priest. Believe it or not, if you're new to listening to the show, we've covered quite a few stories on Russian Orthodox priests because they bless everything. If you're in their path, you're going to get blessed. We did one story where the priest was, or the priests, as in multiple, were blessing military weapons, even ICBM missiles. They were blessing those. They blessed the astronauts and the space shuttle. I forget what else there was. There was a couple other things that were just odd and out of the ordinary. And here's another one from dailymail.co.uk. Spirit in the sky. Russian Orthodox priests throw holy water from a plane to cure a city of fornication and drunkenness. They're really getting into blessing everything. They're taken to the skies. Russian Orthodox priests have blessed a city they say is suffering from diseases of drunkenness and fornication by throwing holy water out of a plane. The city of Tver, northwest of Moscow, received a blessing from above on Wednesday from the Patriarch of the city's Orthodox Church, the Metropolitan Sawa of Tver. Father Alexander Gorachev and two other clergymen were also present for the blessing. And there's a photo of the padre standing at the airplane door up in the sky. He's got his chalice, and he's going to bless everything. There's a video on the site too, but pictures are good enough. The amount of holy water used for the Mass totaled 15 gallons. They performed the ritual to honor All Russian Sobriety Day. They also brought an icon of John the Baptist, the patron saint of alcoholics, and the inexhaustible chalice, which is supposed to heal those suffering from addiction problems. This is almost like Harry Potter. Any disease is from a virus, and a virus is a demon. Therefore, any disease is primarily a spiritual disease, Gorachev told the local TV site tvernews.com. I think there might be a few doctors in disagreement with that, but whatever. It wasn't until the plane reached 200 to 300 meters that the priests began their mass. And there's the padre with, is a John the Baptist, maybe? I don't know whose picture that is. There's an adult and a baby, so it might be Mary and Jesus, but what do I know? They're loading up. They have gallons of water. They're loading up onto the plane. When asked whether people would take the blessing seriously, the clergyman replied, "Let them laugh and we'll do our job." The priests have flown over the city performing blessings since 2006 and said that they instantly cured a man suffering from alcoholism during one of their flights. Bullshit. Gorachev recalled that an alcoholic was sitting with his wife and saw a plane flying overhead and then decided instantly to give up alcohol. Bullshit. I think I have something in my throat, excuse me. And that's the entirety of the article. We did a story like this some time ago, but it was in Brazil. The town was just overrun with gang activity and drug use, and that padre went up in a helicopter and blessed the city that way. I think I suggested blessing the clouds before a rainstorm. That way, the clouds would rain holy water. That might be a loophole that doesn't work, though. I don't know. Here we have a little bit of an eerie one from news.yahoo.com. Skin-crawling discovery. Body farm scientists find corpses move. And a body farm is where scientists study how bodies decompose in nature. An Australian scientist has proven that human bodies move around significantly for more than a year after death, in findings that could have implications for detectives and pathologists around the world. After studying and photographing the movements of a corpse over 17 months, Alison Wilson told AFP on Friday that she found humans don't exactly rest in peace. In one case study, arms that began held close to the body ended up flung out to the side. I kind of got some chills there. I don't like that idea. We think the movements relate to the process of decomposition as the body mummifies and the ligaments dry out, she said. To carry out her unusual form of people watching, Wilson took the 3-hour flight from Cairns to Sydney every month to check on the progress of a cadaver. Her subject was one of 70 bodies stored at the Southern Hemisphere's only body farm, which sits at a secret bushland location on the outskirts of Australia's largest city. Officially known as... I wonder why they keep it secret. I mean, I know there are some sickos out there that might want to check out a body farm and maybe even do stuff to the bodies, but I don't know, I guess just keep it secret. That's for the best. Officially known as the Australian Facility for Taphonomic Experimental Research, otherwise known as AFTER, the farm is carrying out pioneering research into post-mortem movement. Wilson and her colleagues were trying to improve a commonly used system for estimating the time of death using time-lapse cameras, and in the process found that human bodies actually move around significantly. Her findings were recently published in the journal Forensic Science International, Synergy. A better understanding of these movements and the rate of decomposition could be used by police to estimate time of death more accurately. She hopes the knowledge could, for example, narrow down the number of missing persons that could be linked to an unidentified corpse. A better understanding of postmortem movement could also help to reduce the incorrect cause of death or misinterpretation of a crime scene. They'll map a crime scene, they'll map the victim's body position, they'll map any physical evidence which is found, and they can understand the cause of death. The CQ University criminology graduate says she started her unique project after a trip to Mexico to help classify Mayan-era skeletal remains. I was fascinated with death from a child and was always interested in how the body breaks down after death. I guess that comes about from being raised on a farm and seeing livestock die and watching that process, she said. It's an interesting childhood. Once I observed a movement in a previous study, I started researching and couldn't find anywhere in the world that looks at quantifying the movement, so I thought, okay, I'm going to do this. And she did, and she does. And our last story for the day is a fun one from CNN. Headline reads, "And the award for the strangest, most unusual, and downright hilarious scientific research goes to..." It's the Ig Nobel awards. And after I read the article, we'll go to the Improbable Research website and read about the winners. So here we go. Pizza might protect against cancer, why wombats poop in cubes, and a diaper changing machine that can be used on human babies. These are just some of the research and inventions awarded at this year's Ig Nobel Prizes, a spoof of the actual Nobel Prize awards. The Ig Nobels are intended to celebrate the unusual, honor the imaginative, and spur people's interest in science, medicine, and technology, according to its website. Even if the science does sound, well, hilarious. Organized by the magazine Annals of Improbable Research, the awards have been going on for 29 years, always celebrated in September with a gala held at Harvard University. Winners accept their prizes from genuinely bemused, genuine Nobel laureates. The winners are always sure to cause a few laughs, and this year's are no different. 2 scientists from France won the Anatomy Prize for measuring scrotal temperature asymmetry in naked and clothed postmen in France, for example. And if you're curious, the left one is warmer, but only when the postman is clothed. Another team won the Economics Prize for testing which country's paper money was the grossest or best at transmitting dangerous bacteria. The Romanian leu won, but the US dollar was a finalist. A third team won the Peace Prize for trying to measure the pleasure of scratching an itch. Itching in the ankle and back is way more pleasurable, they discovered. And there are more, and they're all real studies. We'll get to those in a second. Though some may sound ridiculous, the magazine holds that they're not trying to make fun of science or its achievements. We are honoring achievements that make people laugh, then think. Good achievements can also be odd, funny, and even absurd. So can bad achievements. A lot of good science gets attacked because of its absurdity. A lot of bad science gets revered despite its absurdity, the magazine states on their website. So let's go to their website, and I'll read the winning prize for the 2019 Ig Nobel Prize winners and the reference material that was either used or created for the winner. So the first up is the Medicine Prize. Winners from Italy and the Netherlands. Silvano Gallis for collecting evidence that pizza might protect against illness and death if the pizza is made and eaten in Italy. Reference, does pizza protect against cancer? Also, pizza and risk of acute myocardial infarction, and pizza consumption and the risk of breast, ovarian, and prostate cancer. That's some real science. I mean, this is good stuff. The Medical Education Prize, USA. Karen Pryor and Teresa McKeon for using a simple animal training technique called clicker training to train surgeons to perform orthopedic surgery. You know, clicker training like you use with dogs? Works on doctors too. Reference is teaching simple surgical skills using an operant learning program more effective than teaching by demonstration. Okay. Biology Prize, Singapore, China, Germany, Australia, Poland, USA, and Bulgaria. There's a whole slew of names for this one. I'm not going to read them all. Prize was for discovering that dead magnetized cockroaches behave differently than living magnetized cockroaches. Reference, in vivo biomagnetic characterization of the American cockroach. The Anatomy Prize, France, and this was covered in the CNN article. Roger Moussouet, it's French name, I'm not good with French, and Boris Bengodifa for measuring scrotal temperature asymmetry in naked and clothed postmen in France. Reference thermal asymmetry of the human scrotum. I've never said that before on the show. Chemistry Prize, Japan. Another one with a whole slew of names. The prize was for estimating the total saliva volume produced per day by a typical 5-year-old child. That one is pretty gross. Reference, estimation of a total saliva volume produced per day in a 5-year-old children. Engineering Prize, Iran. Iman Farabakash for inventing a diaper-changing machine for use on human infants. Reference, infant washer and diaper changer apparatus and method. The Economics Prize, Turkey, the Netherlands, and Germany. Habib Gedik, Timothy A. Voss, and Andreas Voss for testing which country's paper money is best at transmitting dangerous bacteria. Reference, money and transmission of bacteria. The Peace Prize, and it cracks me up that this is the Peace Prize. It's from the UK, Saudi Arabia, Singapore, and the USA, for trying to measure the pleasurability of scratching an itch. Reference, the pleasurability of scratching an itch, a psychophysical and topographical assessment. And I was just thinking about it. They mentioned in the CNN article, itching the ankle, scratching the ankle. That does feel really nice. A good itch on the ankle. It's been in the sock all day. Give it a good scratch. Man, that's good stuff. Psychology Prize, Germany. Fritz Strack for discovering that holding a pen in one's mouth makes one smile, which makes one happier, and for then discovering that it does not. Reference, inhibiting and facilitating conditions of the human smile, a non-obtrusive test of the facial feedback hypothesis. Also reference, from data to truth in psychological science, a personal perspective. And the Physics Prize, USA, Taiwan, Australia, New Zealand, Sweden, and the UK, for studying how and why wombats make cubed-shaped poo. Did you know that about wombats? Their poop is shaped like cubes. For real. They look like little chocolates. And that's it. Those are the winners. So, I hope we've learned a lot this episode. There's some interesting stuff. You could check out the website at www.otheritemsofinterest.com. You can email us at otheritemsofinterestpod@gmail.com. Visit us on Instagram at otheritemspod and Twitter at otheritems. I guess that's the end of the show. I have nothing else to say. I'm still thinking about that goddamn dream. I just want to stop thinking about it because it wasn't disturbing. It was just very vivid. It feels like it really happened. So let's just cue the music. Hello and welcome to the end of the show. It's the end of Other Items of Interest. I've been your host, Jack Zablocki. I hope you've had a good time today. Hope you learned something. Hope you had a laugh or two. And maybe we'll see you again next week. Bye-bye.